So, we will now continue where we have started this journey. And you see, the most difficult part of the journey toward freedom is to take the first step. Because we have to break through so much prior conditioning, so much denial, so much confusion. And that's always difficult. It is always a struggle when we have to start expanding our views about many things that we have formed very rigid views about. Rigid to the point of refusing to consider any alternative points of view. So I'm very happy that we have crossed the most difficult part of the journey, and now we are ready to enter into what the Buddhists have called the Sotapanna stream that allows us to cross over to the other shore where freedom and the ending of dukkha can be found. And I hope that, if nothing else today, you take from here a commitment to really become very serious now. Serious to the point of involvement on a daily basis in the process of real, authentic liberation. I call you to transcend the limitation that is ordinary religion, where you are simply preoccupied with a system of belief for the purposes of consoling you in the stressful and dissatisfied condition that underlies your problems. I call you to transcend that limitation and truly stand free to let go of the very process in you that is making your misery in the first place, to lose all sympathy with it. This is difficult because you have been clinging to and attached to, connected to these strategies for purposes of consoling your great and profound dissatisfaction all of your life. They become intimate with you. They're like a pair of old shoes, and I understand the attachment to them. But you must simply see now that these things, these strategies that you have been resorting to historically, do not deliver the Sotapanna fruit that is the ending of the suffering. Seeing that, stand back and stand free. That becomes our test. The standing back and thus standing free automatically and naturally occurs in the process of perfectly observing and perfectly understanding things as things really are. This becomes then the foundation of the path. This dynamic for the liberation that we are all seeking from our suffering is universal and informs and lies at the core of all of the great traditions. If you move deep into Christianity, beyond the level of its organization, its rituals, its ceremonies, its mythologies, if you can move past all of the consoling material that is offered initially in the great tradition of Jesus, moving deep into it, you will find the same call being made for the same action, which is letting go. Moving deep into the Dharma of Muhammad And again, bypassing the Shariat and the rules and regulations governing ceremonies, rituals. Going beyond that, you will find the same, very same process becoming required. And it is the case in Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Baha'ism. It is always the same, because there's only one way out of this suffering for all human beings. It's not that there's a different way for you, Charles, than for me. It is the same way. Ultimately. Let us continue. Why suffering in the first place, beloved? We were talking, Brother Robert and I, during the break. He was sharing with me an insight that he's had. Perhaps an insight that he's had all along, but certainly surfaced, leaped to the forefront of his awareness today. A great aha arose in hearing this argument that I have been offering you today. Why is dukkha in the first place? Why does it exist? Why suffering? Interesting. Why suffering exist in the first place? I mentioned to brother that this dukkha itself, the feeling of dukkha, the feeling of dissatisfaction with your life at all of its levels, this inability to find and achieve permanent and complete satisfaction from anything, person, circumstance, or condition that you encounter. This very profound and existential condition that is your life, this dukkha, is the very mechanism of spiritual evolution. Are you with me so far? Stay with me. It is if that which has brought everything into existence has set it up in such a way that you are denied satisfaction until you cross the Sutapana stream and come home. God, Allah, Jehovah, whatever name you wish to give this source and ground of all being, seems to have built into the system that is human existence the absolute impossibility to become satisfied to the point of permanency with anything except oneness with it. No possibility, no way to cheat. You must come back to me and rest in me. It seems to be the way that the creation has been set up. And it is through this systematic process and experience of dukkha to the point of seeing how all of your strategies have failed to produce any real lasting and really fulfilling satisfaction. Seeing this drives you. It becomes the very motive force that moves you. Are you following me? You are motive out of the response to your suffering. it sets up the seeking mechanism. Have you ever thought about it? You never seek that which you are already in union with. Do you? You don't. You cannot. Seeking is predicated on the feeling of being separate. Right? This feeling that you are separate from that which has brought you into being is called ego. Ego is the feeling that you are separate from existence, that you are somehow independently existing, that I exist here and the rest of the universe is there, that there is two. Ego is the illusion that there is two, what we call duality. The reality is that there is only one. And the goal then of spiritual practice and the whole culture of spirituality is the realization of this oneness, which is always, already the case. There is no time that you are not standing in this oneness. Are you following me? It is not possible. To exist, by definition, is to exist within the context of that which you are calling God, by definition. One simply must realize it. One simply must see it. And the most ultimate characteristic of the condition that is oneness, that is God, is that that condition is happy. One knows when one has crossed the Sutapana stream, because one comes into a condition of infinite, unending bliss that is no longer conditioned upon anything. It is a profound thing. And it is just this pursuit of happiness that characterizes all of our activities. Each and every one of us, even every manifest being, in every form, is seeking happiness. Moved out of a response to this thing called dukkha. So you see, suffering then serves as a very profound mechanism in existence to bring us back into this condition, to bring us into realization of this condition. It is wrong to say bring us back into it as if something spatial is going on. You're not moving anywhere. You're simply realizing that which is already. That is the golden purpose. And this is the argument that you must really sit with and truly enter into a very deep consideration of this argument. Because if one is not convicted of the futility and the impossibility of achieving a permanent state of happiness, of finding any fulfillment in life that is more than temporary and minimal through any other means than union, then one simply will never become receptive to the grace that is always, already the case. You will still be under the illusions of your ego. Now, of course, we cannot exhaust this argument. I invite those who are serious about it to explore it in its full presentation in the Who Am I book, because it's so important that you understand this, to appreciate the whole notion and what is required in spiritual practice. let us continue. We were looking at the qualities, characteristics of each and every event that is rising in the domain of reality. And we begin to see that they are characterized by great impermanence. And I have already just offered to you that because things are impermanent, because everything that you are trying to make happiness out of is impermanent, any happiness you are able to experience out of that process, by definition, will also be impermanent. Are you following me? Yes. What are we trying to make happiness out of? People, right? Things, situations, so forth and so on. And we could go on expanding this list, and what you will find that none of the things on your list of ingredients that you are trying to concoct happiness out of is permanent. Therefore, any of the relief that it can give you from this dukkha is also impermanent. Are you following me? And you must see this. You must see this. You must not be in relationship to this revelation at the level of propaganda and belief. Don't believe me. If you simply depend on believing what I say without first making it your own revelation, then you have not been served well at all. You have simply wasted your time. It is not something to simply be believed. It is to be seen. You must see this thing. Hence, the need for the practice of radical self-observation. These are the preliminary trainings that one must go through before one can truly engage effectively in the self and God realization process. Are you following me? Yeah. This is the preparation. There must be a radical self-observation. You must observe yourself and all of the states and objects of self. Are you following me? They must be observed thoroughly. And this is a great. With this very radical self-observation will come a very radical understanding. Can you get to radical understanding without first engaging in the process of radical self-observation, folks? No. No. Be convicted of that. Because there are still those who said no really means saying yes in their heart. They really, somewhere deep down inside themselves, they really think that they can avoid this. So you want somebody to tell you about yourself. So you're looking for a therapist. Please, therapist, would you tell me about myself? Or you're looking for some book to tell you about yourself. How would a book tell you about yourself? Or are you resorting to some oracle? Or palmistry? Or astrology? Or reading tarot cards? And throwing cowrie shells? And mixing your colors? Hoping that through these mechanistic processes, you will be able to learn something about yourself. You are willing to resort to all kinds of things rather than do that which must be done, which is to look at yourself radically. Someone mentioned earlier the necessity for honesty. Right? This is where it comes in. You must be radically brutally honest in such self-observation. Now this is so. I am simply emphasizing and underscoring these points because I know there are some of you here who have already demonstrated and expressed an interest in really engaging in the spiritual processes I have been trying to articulate it this morning. And I don't want you to bring to the process any kind of wrong view. The process is not magic. There is no magic. Period. There is nothing up in the sky beyond the clouds that's going to liberate you. You can't do it through diet. Some are trying to arrange their eating styles in such a way that by eating vegetarian or vegan, I'm going to become enlightened. No, you will not. You might feel a little better in the body. It has its value. It helps if you're feeling all right at the level of the body, because that ceases to distract you from this ordeal of self-observation. This requires great attention. But it's not going to enlighten you. But there are literally millions of people worshiping diets. Very finicky about it. Thinking that that is in some way, shape, form, or fashion going to transform their consciousness and awareness of self. And it simply doesn't. So I want to be very clear about this. No superstitions. Take off all of your unks and all of your jewelry and birthstones and uncross your finger and toes, empty your rabbit foot all out of your pocket, and take your crucifix off. You understand? None of that stuff can replace or substitute for the process.
Stevie Wonder told us that.
Stevie Wonder told us. So only by engaging in this very radical process of self-observation to the point of accessing radical understanding. And it is out of that radical understanding that you will simply transcend your prior condition. Are you following me? Because remember, I've been said from the top of the argument that there is simply no way to solve your problem of dukkha while remaining in the condition of consciousness instead of ignorance that you are in. It simply cannot be done. You can be helped to become consoled. Yes, that's possible. So your clients can come to you, right? And you can write a prescription, or engage them in one of the methodologies of psychology, and they can feel a little consoled. Give you some Prozac, all right? Now you can cope with your misery. The misery remains. You just become functionally miserable. That's all. While there are others without access to the culture of psychology and psychiatry who are simply dysfunctionally miserable. That is the only distinction. The misery remains. We're talking about transcendence. And that's a very different process. So far, so good. You with me? So, these three things constitute the foundation of the preliminary stages of the process of transformation of consciousness. And they must be engaged. There's simply no way to avoid it. There's a kind of science going on here. Hence, very often, the path is referred to as a spiritual science. There's a science happening. And in science, we talk about the necessity for three things. One, you must have some kind of injunctive. You must have some kind of exemplar, some kind of experimental framework, right? You must do something to know something, right? If I'm a scientist, right, and I want to know how cells split or how cells react to the invasions of a virus, right, I must conduct an experiment, right? I must put a sail on a slide, put some dye on it, and slide it under a mic and look at it. There is simply no other way to access or apprehend that which I want to know. Now you follow me here? You must do that. This is the most crucial step in the scientific process, the scientific method. Even after I have conducted the experiment, accessed and made contact with the data, the field of knowledge that I was trying to get to in the first place, I am not through. I must now what, folks? Verify.
Check.
Within a community of practitioners. You must do that. It's not enough that I ran the experiment, I looked at it, I therefore came to certain conclusions. I must check it out now with others who have made the same experiment. Why? Why?
To validate it.
To validate it and to make sure that I what? Got it what? Right? And that I'm not self-deluded. Because you can delude yourself when you're practicing outside of a community. Hence the need to practice inside of a community in any pursuit of knowledge. Please underscore that. Because there are many of you who think you can single-handedly find the thing. That you can stand back from a community. No, you cannot. You must be a part of a community that is skilled and have conducted the same experiment in search of the knowledge that you are searching for. Otherwise, you are simply subject and very likely to remain self-deluded about it. Now, you have concocted some kind of strange mixture that you call in meditation. But when I meditate, what are you talking about? You don't know anything about meditation. You put together some stuff based on this book, that book, what you heard, what you saw on Oprah. You understand? You stirred it up, and you're calling that meditation? And when I meditate, Bhagwan, oh, this happened and that happened, I'm going here. You're deluded. You're hallucinating. Check with the community. Go into a community of practitioners and they tell you you're deluded. You simply fell asleep. You fell into a trance state. You went down in the body. You're hallucinating. You're psychotic. You're not enlightened. You are having no experience of having achieved any kind of meditative condition at all. Not in any real authentic sense. But outside of the community, you can't know that. You see? So you will find community is always a very necessary part of any method for the acquisition of authentic knowledge. Doesn't matter which spectrum or level of knowledge that you're trying to ascertain. If it's physical knowledge, the knowledge that makes up the discipline of science, you must practice science within a community of other scientists. In fact, nobody in science would even take you seriously at all. If you are pursuing knowledge in the realms of psychology, then you must work within a community of psychologists who can validate and verify the outcome of your pursuit based on the fact that they have also pursued it and can check. You need somebody to check your answers against. Otherwise, the tendency is to remain self-deluded. So there's a science going on here. Those who have entered deeply into the process of self-observation, all without any exception, every saint, every sage, every mystic, every practitioner, every adept who has really truly entered into the process of self-observation have all, with no difference, made the same discovery. This is interesting. And this is across all kinds, faiths, cultures, sexes, races. It is simply transcendental truth. There is a transcendental truth. And this is the way towards it. So this is what must be done. Now, just a few things more, and we're going to open up the floor, because I've said a lot of things here that has hopefully triggered a lot of questions, and I want to address some of them for you. But we want to look again at the mechanism and the phenomenology of the arising of problems as an inappropriate response to some present aspect of reality. And we'll begin with the aspect of people, of others. What is the basis of your problems with others? Now let's go into this very fast. We're gonna come down now to where we are and start this walk from where we're standing. As human beings, we're in relationship, right? The usual person, your single greatest source of misery in your life has some relationship to the other. Either having another or not having another. Either way it goes, it is still a reference to the other. Some people are miserable because they're not with someone. Some people are miserable because they are with someone. So, it is misery in my book. Either way you cut it, right? But what is going on here? Yes, ma'am. It's expectations, right? You have certain expectations, right? Which are really desires, right? You have certain expectations and desires of the other that are what? Inconsistent with the reality of that person. That is totally inconsistent with how that person really is. All right, are you with me? Yeah. Now you're married to your husband. He's a notorious liar. Okay? Man lies continuously. Big problem because you don't know, you can't trust him. Lie too much. Problem. Right? Love him, but he's a liar. And you expecting him to be honest. You his wife, can't you be honest with me? I'm your wife. Because that's what you heard on Oprah. You read it in all the romance novels. So forth and so on. So that's your expectation of others. Particularly others that you are in an intimate relationship. And that they be honest with you. The reality is that Billy Bob is not honest. Now respond appropriately to that fact and stand free. Rather than slapping him. You see? Rather than kill him. Don't kill him. Because again, what is our ordinary response when reality does not mirror our expectation? Our tendency is to change or try to change reality. Are you with me? Are you with me? Whenever you are having the experience of being dissatisfied with some present aspect of reality in the form of a person, in the relationship to that person, and so forth and so on, your natural ignorant response is to try to change the nature of reality. Are you going to be able to do that? No. In fact, you will only succeed in increasing your suffering. Right? Your suffering will intensify. And somehow you must adjust your view of reality. Is that about right? You must give up the wrong view. Almost all of the conflict in human relationship is rooted in this wrong view of the other that you are in relationship with. Out of the wrong view of the other that you are in relationship with, you generate all kinds of expectations of that other. The other's reality is totally a million miles away from where your expectation is, right? When your expectations have been violated, when the other fails to fulfill those expectations, the result is anger. Right? Now you want to get revenge. Divorce. Right? So forth and so on. What you can't change, then you want to destroy. Are you with me, folks? What you can't change, you seek to destroy, or if you don't respond in that level of psychosis, your response will be to withdraw. Now you try to flee. Is that about right? Now you try to flee. Even if by some strange accident, the person, the other that you are in relationship with, does mimic and mirror your expectation, you still have a problem. Now, this is interesting. This is interesting. Even a brother is the right man. You still got a problem. And what is the problem? Huh? It will change and is impermanent. Right? He might die. Some other woman may get him, and now you got all kinds of anxiety about that. You can't even enjoy having him because you got too much anxiety about losing him. It's a strange dilemma that even when you get what you want, you're not happy. What is going on here? Look at it, look at it, look at it. See this and stand back and stand free. You see? You are clean. And this cleaning sets you up to pain. So these then become some of the classical responses that we are having, aren't they? It's in terms of everything. We're either grasping. We're grasping at trying to get that man, that woman, that job, that house, that car, that money, my health back. Now this is grasping, trying to get, and suffering during the interim of having it. Are you with me? Yes. When you are grasping where? In a condition of pain, suffering, dissatisfaction. And it doesn't appear to be any relief until you get it, right? But you may not ever get the man you want. You may never get the woman, or the job, or the money. Then that means now you are trapped where? In this hellish river of suffering. And it feels just like hell. Now your life simply becomes full of hell, hellish. That's how you describe it. I'm catching hell. You're right. But you are creating the hell. You see? You are generating that. You are doing that to yourself. That's your own activity. And you must see it to become free of it. So this grasping at, even if you get it, and you will start clinging to that which cannot be held. You start suffering from attachment pathology and disorder. I believe in our last series someone must have talked to you about attachment and the pathology of it. Failing to do that, you try to avoid sin. You are in avoidance. Now you're trying to keep bad stuff from happening to you. How will you do that? You're trying to avoid. And guess what? You can't avoid. So when the thing happened, now it's a double dose of misery. All your life you've been trying to avoid getting sick, and now you got cancer. And you have simply made no preparation for ever having cancer. Now you are sick, and you've been trying to avoid it. Now you are broke, and you've been trying to avoid it. Now you are alone with nobody, and you've been trying to avoid it. And therefore you have developed no coping skills whatsoever. Now you're in some serious, serious trouble. What I have called now you have entered into a tremendum of ruin. This one here, is the king of it all. You become identified with the thing, person, situation. Now you make the situation, a person, a part of your identity. You integrate them into your own sense of self. Are you following me, therapists? Mm-hmm. You integrate the other into your own feelings of self. You become fused and confused. And what will happen sooner or later, the object, person, thing, situation, or circumstance, or condition you are fused to will come to an end. It will be no more. Now you become identified with your husband. He's going to die. And when he dies, it will feel like a part of you have died. That is the pain of loss. You will lose a job eventually. And when you lose that job, you'll lose your mind with it. Because you have become identified with your role. Interesting. And when you can no longer play that role, it diminishes you to the point of depression, suffering. Hence, retirement becomes a very difficult stage in life to negotiate because your roles are suddenly pulled out from under your feet. You ain't nobody boss no more. Nobody listens to you anymore. A part of you comes to an end, and you can't help it. You just suffer. So again, these are the three primary ways in which we respond to our wrong views of reality. These are the responses of wrong view. When you have wrong view, you will respond to reality following that model. Not seeing the transient and impermanent nature of things, you will go on grabbing it, trying to get them to hold. Thinking they can be possessed. And you simply can't possess anything. Not seeing the nature of reality, what you already have, you try to keep and enter into a condition of clinging, not realizing, not seeing that you simply cannot hold anything. Everything is a part of this dynamic of change. Not seeing reality the way it is. You're trying to avoid. Now you're trying to avoid pain, not seeing that where there's pleasure, there must be pain. It is always pain. See it. See that. Now you enter into a relationship with a person and you don't want to have no suffering, no conflict. This is madness. Conflict is inherent in human relationship. In the moment the conflict arises, oh, I gotta leave this woman, leave this man, because there's too much fighting going on. What are you talking about? There's gonna be some fighting. Fighting is a part of the process. You make love, you fight. That's how it is. Estamos salentano. Now stand back and stand free from these overreactions. But if you don't see that, you're going to respond inappropriately every single time. And of course, we become identified with these states and objects that arise. Because, as I said earlier, we really don't know who we are. Not knowing who we are, we start becoming misidentified with everything and anything. And when I become identified with the states and objects of my own perception, and when those things are bound to end, right, then it is like an ending of me. I die. I go through the bardo. I experience death. Because something that I thought was a part of me has ended, as it must be. So this misidentification with the states and objects of self becomes a very profound basis of a great suffering. You must really observe yourself to the point of radical understanding and transcend the misidentification of what self is. And when you're able to do that, what do you discover? You find, beloved, that you are simply this witnessing. It is something. You are simply a witness of everything, but none of the stuff. Everything is merely arriving within the context and domain of your own consciousness. And you are simply that context that is merely watching, witnessing. Tat twam asi. Thou art that. Seeing it, you stand back to who you are. And you stand free of the drama that is occurring. And for the first time, you can enjoy it. Now, what has happened to you is the same thing that happened to the man on the tightrope in the dream. Life becomes fun because you know, ain't none of this stuff got anything to do with me. I am simply this witness. So I call you to perfectly observe and perfectly understand, and thus perfectly transcend the illusion of misidentification with the objects, conditions, circumstances, and situations arising within the context of your own consciousness. Seeing this, stand back, stand free, and rest in this wisdom of knowing who you are. No seeking, no grasping, no clinging, no avoiding, no longing. Simply inhere in the absolute bliss that is already the case. This becomes then the whole goal, purpose of spiritual development. Spiritual development is purpose toward the achievement and attainment of this condition, because this is your real condition. And nobody can do this for you. Someone asks, who am I? You must find that out. Give up this whole thing about depending on others to tell you who you are. Look, see. It's like asking, would you tell me when I'm hungry? Now, what kind of sense does that make? Bhagwan, would you tell me when I'm sleepy? Now, don't you know? Only you can know. Right? Self-knowledge is like that. Can't nobody tell you. Yes, I can point it out. I can be a finger pointing to it, but it's like a finger pointing to the moon. Don't confuse my finger with the moon. You see, look in the direction I am pointing out to you. I can point it out. I can give you the pointing out instructions, as we call it in the Zen tradition. But you must truly engage in the process, in the ordeal, in the discipline of self and God realization. Now, with that said, let us open up the floor for any clarification of anything that I've said thus far. You are most welcome to bring that to my attention. Or have I destroyed your mind? Anything you like. Yes, sister?
Hi. I'd like to know, can astrology be a tool for self-actualization?
Astrology can never be a tool for self-actualization, self-realization. In fact, astrology is only useful for people who can't access and feel themselves and need a secondary means of doing so.
So basically, it's how do you, I mean, if you want to know about yourself, what do you advocate?
Just what I've just said, beloved. There is nothing else. There's nothing else. You must really actually enter into this process. It's like resorting to astrology to know if I'm hungry. Now, this is madness. Now, most people resort to astrology because they're trying to figure out if there's a way to predict what will happen to them in the future. It is a response to anxiety. They're trying to know, not knowing that they can't know anything. You see?
Right.
You simply cannot know.
What about when you have leanings? Okay, it's kind of like you live in this society and you have to choose a job and you have to go to work and you have to have a means of living, and all you ever wanted to do was write songs and write, but you have to choose a lifestyle.
Then you got to get real. You got to start responding to life as life really is. Life calls for you to become capable of doing all these things. The task of love, the task of work, the task of friendship, cooperation, all of these things. You must get straight. It is so. And people simply don't want to get straight. You must come out of all fantasies, all Maya-making, all alternatives that you're trying to create to reality as it is. Actually, you see, beloved, working, making a living and all these things challenges you at a level of creativity that no art can, that no music can. Period. There's a great misunderstanding. The most creative people on the planet are not our artists, not our musicians. It is the person that can simply live according to the nature of life. That's really creativity. That requires great intelligence, great creativity. And very often you see, sister, and I won't go into it too much, but maybe we can talk privately, because your question is being asked out of your own condition, and you have to understand more about your condition. You see, you have to turn your attention there and see, right? From where is this frustration with life arising in the first place? It's not coming into you, it's coming out of you. And you must see this or be made capable of seeing. Yes, someone else had a comment? Don't mean to frighten you off, but that's all. Right? Yes, sir.
Being in a society where everything that's around, everything, television, news, radio, billboards and whatnot, it plays a part in that whole thing of who am I when you're trying to get to the point where you want to, like there was one comment in your book, who do you know who you were before your grandmother was born? And I'm like, man, I know it. And I still figure out I am today. But it was just the fact that it seemed like and then the oneness when the child connects with the mother in the mother's womb, and then being affected by society every day, trying to know who you are and these different other things coming into effect when you really start to understand who you really are, and every day that you are constantly battling with society's dysfunctionalisms, and being African American, the whole concept of being miseducated, and then us having a mind that we really think we know who we are, but we really don't know who we are. Like I was at, who are you? And I was like, I don't know. Where did I come from? Where did I exist? What am I here to do on this planet? Why am I here? And that's that whole concept, which is very difficult. Really trying to get into a place of self-peace.
Yes, you see, therefore the need for the process of meditation. Because the only way that you will ever be able to become free of all is that you must somehow liberate yourself from these influences, factors that has conditioned in your sense of self. Now, when we do some of the future workshops and on post-traumatic racism disorders, I will be talking about them, visiting them, within the context of developmental ego psychology. As the sense of self evolves and unfolds through these various developmental stages that I have outlined in the Who Am I book, each one produces a different sense of identity and who you are. So naturally, if you are not able to move through this hierarchy in developmental stages, then you become trapped. Now there is a level of ego development where the fundamental basis by which you form your sense of self is cultural. I've called it cultural-centric basis of identity. You are that which belongs to a certain group or a certain culture, etc., etc. Right? And as long as you are identified with that as your principal basis of who you are, then you will simply mirror that in your psychology. You see, your values will tend to mirror the values of that culture, by definition. So a lot of this, you see, brother, has to do with where you are in your own personal stage of ego development unfolding. If you are stuck, you see, in one of the pre-personal stages, the pre-personal stages are characterized exactly by the absence of any feeling of self. Now this is interesting. When you are at there is the pre-personal, there's the personal, and then there's the transpersonal. Stage of ego development. Ego is unfolding. By that I mean the sense of self unfolds. It's developmental. And up to this point here, this stage of ego development, right, is characterized by the absence of a strong sense of who I am. Even in a cultural sense, even sometimes in a physical sense. Each of these stages are further divided into three sub-phases. And I'm not going to go into this. I refer you to the works of Mahler or Blank and Blank. And, there's all kinds of theoretical psychologists that have written extensively about it. But certainly, the first phase is the artistic. At this stage, the individuals don't even have a sense of self. They have not hatched. All right? Some children, when they are born, do not hatch into a sense of self-awareness at all. They exist, yes, but they don't even know they're here. They are artistic. They are closed. They are locked. And just the most primitive processes that is going on in the body. You see? They are artistic. They have no sense of self. Then you have those who have gone a little further. And again, I'm not going to exhaust all of this stuff here. And they begin to separate. You know, they develop what we call a sense of body stuff. Body. It takes the infant a while to learn that it is separate from the mother. It is not self-aware of being a separate body. The boundaries between it and its mother bodies are confused. They can't make the distinction. And so it takes a while then for the sense of self to even differentiate out of the fused state with the mother, even at the level of the body. And then there are intra-body divisions and separation that has to be made. For instance, even when you become identified as being a separate body, now you got to separate out your gender. You know, with the first phase of bodily differentiation from that body of the mother, right? You're immediately confronted with the next phase. Now, what is your sex? Am I a girl or boy? You got to become aware of that. When it first happened, you don't even know if you're a girl or boy. You just know you're separate. So those are intrapsychic stages of differentiation and separation, and then you got to reintegrate all of that. So this will be the area that we will begin to explore, because that is the thing. You must really see what is your sense of self right now. Who, I know you don't know who you are, but who do you think you are? Let's start there. A practical. This is a practical thing. Who do you think you are? Let's begin there. Yes, Miko? I thought that silenced you.
I'm a child of God.
Philosophy. All right.
But I was taught that.
Right. And that's what you think you are. You think you are what you've been taught to think. You think you are the opinions of others. You think you are the commentaries of others. That's who you think you
but
are.
But you have nothing else to base it on. I mean, you come into life and you have what you're taught the language, so you think because of your culture, and so your identity is formed based on your culture.
But here's what has to happen, beloved. You see, at some point in the development of any human being, you are able to make the distinction between self and others, what we call object relationship constancy. You see, at first, when a child begin and become capable of making image and self-representations, right? Those representations of self that it will make will be fused with the same representation it makes of objects in the world that it is seeing. It creates image, what we call the phantasmic stage of development. But it is fused, right? And you must simply move to the next level of development where you can clearly distinguish the difference between your own self-representations and the representations of others and objects. Failing to do that, you remain fused and confused. Borderline is the condition that describes that. You follow what I'm saying?
I'm following you.
All right. So we're just, again, a lot of this stuff that these kinds of comments raise becomes the basis for a kind of one-on-one thing. And as you know by now, of course, because you've been to the house before. And of course, Shakti Devi probably has made you aware that very often I do, whenever I can, try to make myself available on a one-on-one basis. Because, you know, some of this stuff, quite frankly, is personal.
Right.
And how I respond to you is you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Making these kind of response in an open situation very often can cause others to be confused and think that it also applies to them. I'm strictly customized, beloved. You know what I mean? I'm a customized dog. So all my responses is just for the person I'm talking to. It don't have nothing to do with you spectators. Yes, sir.
Please stand when you ask your question.
How do you think traditions and religions play a role in keeping individuals from violence?
I don't think they do it purposely. I don't know whether there's that much intelligence behind the operation of organized religion to do it purposely. But certainly it does, in fact, becomes problematic, but only after you have gone to a certain stage of your own ego development and unfoldment. For instance, a person, unless they reached a relatively higher state of ego unfoldment and development, won't even be concerned with the things that religion is concerned with in the first place. The ability to engage in religion requires that you have already arrived at a stage in your own development where you can function according to a text or out of a role. The role text stage of ego development has to first be attained, you see? Beneath that, the person simply cannot even take other people's point of view into play. They have no ability to think along the lines of empathy. So for them, religion, morality, and all this is not even an issue. So again, religion then is primarily the activity that is available only to those who have at least moved to the fourth egoic stage of development in the first place, right? And so it's useful because you're trying to find your role and place in life, and religion shapes that for you. That is what we call conventional developmental stage, like a conventional morality. You are conventionally moral, you see. But there's another stage, transpersonal, above that, where now you become post-conventional. Now your morality is no longer influenced by the theology of your particular religion. Your righteousness flows from seeing and not believing. Is that right, Nirvana? So religion serves us until we can see. So it is useful, essential, necessary, right? It organizes behavior in those who cannot self-organize their behavior. And without religion, then we have chaos. Civilization breaks down. Sometimes even with faulty religion, civilization still breaks down. But the point is that it serves a legitimate function. So I've never been against religion per se. Religion is a part of the developmental stages that we all must go through on our journey toward attaining our real condition, or at least the realization of our real condition. So that's the very short answer, beloved. You know, hopefully as you are able to come to these kinds of meetings, incidentally we have something like this every 2 weeks on Sundays. And I'm sure most of you are aware of where we meet. And as you are able to hear these arguments more frequently and ponder them, then you begin to appreciate my responses to them. But it does require a kind of pre-thinking about it. Anything else? Yes, but
Isn't that there's something else that emerges within the process of seeing your condition and your problems, of how you don't know what anything is and you can't change or alter reality, that it also brings you into an understanding that you need someone to serve as a catalyst in the acceleration of you transcending those problems, someone who themselves are standing free.
Sure. Actually, a person can only become an authentic student once they discover they don't know anything. It is really interesting, Guru Murti. There was, of course, the story that I've told on many occasions of the seeker. They came to the great Asar, the great Buddha, the great Guru, whatever you want to call these people, but came and approached the great sage in search of knowledge. They wanted knowledge. The master, seeing the condition that this person was in, because it was always perfectly obvious to those who can see the condition of the seeker, knew that his mere engaging that seeker in philosophy and discourse and metaphysics would not be useful. He saw the problem. Question was how to communicate it to him, because he's so full of stuff that if you're telling him something, he can't even hear you, because while you telling him stuff, he's thinking about something else, because the presumption is that I already know. So you just letting what the master say come in one ear and go out the other, because I already know the answers. You see? It is the presumption of knowledge. So the way the master handled that situation, and which is a classical way in which Sufi masters handle things. Sufi masters answer questions by doing things, never by discoursing. So the master first said, well, brother, first have a cup of tea. You climb way up to the top of the mountain. You must be tired. Relax. Let us have a cup of tea, and then we'll get engaged into this thing. So the master handed him his cup, began to pour the tea. As he poured and poured, the tea rose in the cup to the point of overflowing. And he kept pouring. He kept pouring the whole pot. And the tea ran all over. The seeker was shocked. And he began to think to himself, this man, what kind? And he's supposed to be enlightened? I done climbed up this whole hill. This fool can't even see. That's a cup. It's full. And you can't put no more in it. You know? And he gathered the courage to bring this to the sage attention. He said, Master, didn't you see what you were doing? Could you not see, obviously see, that this cup was full? And you simply kept pouring. And the master said, yes. He said, that is the same way with you. Now your head is full of knowledge. I can't put nothing else in it. Go empty your head. So you have to become empty-headed. Drop all your knowledge. Drop all your belief system. Expand. Expand. If you're a 1%er, you cannot benefit much from the company of the master. Please make a note of that. It ain't enough room in your head to take in the wisdom. You have no room for wisdom. Your head is full of nonsense, full of bullshit. And that is all. Yes, Dave?
I'm back to this 83 fixed price.
83, 84. That's right.
Do I have to work through all 84 of them first?
Unfortunately,
Is it a shortcut?
Unfortunately, Dave, the usual person is so asleep that is the only route available. You see, every one of us, every sentient being, over a vast period of time will attain enlightenment. Now this is so. Now this is so. But it will be enlightenment attained through the very long process in school of hard knocks. Now this enlightenment and the attainment of it can be accelerated. One need not go through that whole ordeal if one first is lucky enough to come across a sage. That's the first thing that must happen. Because an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by an outside force. The ignorant person will remain ignorant unless acted upon by a wise person. Adamo sanentano. So that's the first thing. Even when you come across the sage, then you simply must make room to hear the Dhamma. After hearing the Dhamma, you must now, out of that understanding, practice the Dhamma. And you will always know those who have truly heard the Dhamma because instantly they will become practitioners. Those who hear the Dhamma who are intelligent, instantly practice Dhamma. So you must be intelligent enough to respond to the Dhamma that is being heard. You see? and so forth and so on. And through that and many other more subtle things that I cannot go into in any real thorough way because of the limitation of time. One whole spiritual evolution gets accelerated. This acceleration of our spiritual evolution as a result of coming in contact with the sage is what is referred to as the grace of the master. So most ultimately, you see, you must have the grace of the master. Otherwise, you're simply doomed. Without the grace of the master, then you got to wait on God. And that may take, who knows? God is in no hurry. He's not motivated.
He ain't motivated.
No, it's no big thing. Your little suffering is no big thing. But otherwise, you see, Dave, you normally will have to go through. It depends on how receptive you are to the grace. It's like with our children. You can give them some advice. If they take it, all right. You see. They can make it their knowledge if they listen to it rightly. Or if they cannot make it their knowledge by listening to it rightly and coming into right relationship with the advice that is being given, then they have to learn through the school of hard knocks. And that is a time-consuming process. So if you are hard-headed, Dave, you're doomed. What can I tell you? If you're a hard-headed rascal, right? But we specialize in hard-headed rascals in the house. We got a whole department. Anything else? Yes, beloved.
How do you, if you're the type of person who always does things for other people and you feel guilty by not pleasing them, or when you feel guilty of saying no to whatever it is that you're doing for them, how do you deal with that? How can you go about not feeling guilty?
Yeah. Well, as you know, Darlene, the first thing that we teach, as you know from class, is that you must investigate it, right? And then we got to start peeling that down. We got to see where this reluctance to say no is coming from in your own psyche, right? And we know that that is rooted in some kind of fear. Ordinarily, it is abandonment phobia, fear of abandonment, you see. And why is that fear of abandonment going on in the first place? Because your ego and sense of self and the well-being of that self is always incorporated in the sense of self, right? Has become fused with the other. So if you say something that will cause the abandonment, you will suffer, right? So pleasing is an act that you do in your own behalf. It has nothing else to do with the other person, and you must see that. Pleasing others is your own strategy. It is something you do for yourself. You see? It arises out of the borderline condition that we talked about earlier. You know what I mean? We'll go into it in class. You remember?
I remember.
Because Lillian wants to go into that now. She want to have her turn. You had your turn with her, now she want to have her turn with you. So you bring it up in class, and we'll have more time, and we'll really get into that. But it has something in that arena.